This week's episode is brought to you by Axel and Pandora, who suggested the featured movie on our Twitter page. Thank you very much, guys. We really do appreciate the support, and we are very glad you're enjoying the show. If you have a movie you'd like us to cover, like Axel and Pandora did, we'll tell you how you can do just that at the end of the episode. And now, let's begin. My name is Sheldon, and this is The Graveyard Shift, horror with Sheldon and Mike. Welcome to episode 33 of The Graveyard Shift, where each week we watch a movie from the horror category, usually one suggested by one of our fine listeners. You know who you are. And we carve it up into the good, the bad, and sometimes the downright confusing bits. We'll talk about the plot, some behind-the-scenes stuff, and anything else we think is fun or relevant. And yes, I said we. Please say hello to the guy that I am not 100% convinced is not some kind of evil puppet, my co-host Mike. Hey, Mike, how are you doing?
A little deflated after watching this movie, but I'm optimistic because I get to spend time with you.
Awesome. So tell me, are you starting to thaw out at all?
Yeah, actually was able to go outside and not have the air hurt my face. which is a Canadian heat wave,
Really?
as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, in case you guys are not aware, Mike and I live in Ontario, Canada, in two different cities, but the same province, and we are having one of the coldest winters on record. It was painfully cold for a while. You know when something is so cold that when you touch it, it actually feels like it's burning you? That's how cold the air felt sometimes here, like so far this winter. I so can't not wait for summer. Honestly, the first person I hear complain about the heat this summer will get throat punched. Like, this is enough. Like, I don't know if I've ever felt so cold in my life. So, yeah, luckily it has warmed up a little. Like, the snow was starting to... What I saw today when I took the dog out for a walk is like the snow was starting to get to that point where it's starting to turn into a little bit of like a little slushy. So, that's a good sign. Okay, but anyway, here we are talking about the weather when we got horror movies to talk about. So let's get on with our movie. Mike, what's on board for this week?
Today's episode is No Strings Attached, because we watched The Puppet Master.
Yes, we did. And before we start tearing this one apart, here is some info on it. As soon as I get my notes here. Puppet Master is a 1989 American horror film that is the first in a franchise that has about, 100,000 other movies in it that hardly anyone has ever heard of, let alone seen. It had a budget of $400,000 and had a box office return of about $1.2 million. This number, of course, does not include home video sales or rentals. It has a Rotten Tomatoes critic score of 43% and an audience score of 40%. You know, for the most part, sorry if anyone's a fan of this, I completely agree with those scores. But we're going to get into that later.
30% on Rotten Tomatoes. Yeah, that's about right.
Yeah.
My sense of justice in the world is appeased.
I wrote down, did you say 38%?
I thought it was 30%.
Oh, maybe it was. Maybe I looked at one of the sequels. Who knows? But it's still pretty close anyway, if that's the case. But anyway, as for the plot, a puppet master... that must be where they got the title from. Uses an ancient Egyptian potion to bring his toys to life, but kills himself out of despair when they become demonic little murderers. Years later, a team of psychics discover them and attempt to get rid of them. So, okay, Mike, before we go into detail, what did you think of this one?
So fucking slow and plodding. Like, even during the exciting parts where I thought, oh yeah, this is where all the waiting is paid off, we're going to see something really cool, it just takes so fucking long to do it.
Yeah. It was much slower than I remembered it from the first time I saw it. I was kind of pretty young the first time I saw it. I think it might have been just new to VHS when I had saw it in the video stores. But this, honest to God, I kind of remembered it being better. Now watching it, maybe it's because I've seen so many horror movies since then, and that my tastes and certainly my attention span has changed. Honestly, it almost put me to sleep. I'm not even kidding.
Yeah, I was looking to play Transformers on my phone several times during this movie.
Okay, so we got a feeling we know where this is going, but let's get into it, and let's talk about what's good about this one first of all. So, as is tradition in our long-standing tradition here on the Graveyard Shift, all those 6 months we've been doing this. Let's start with you, Mike.
My first good point. 41 minutes into the movie, and we get some wet, coney, soapy boobies.
Yeah, we do. I'm like, Mike's either going to talk about credits or boobs, so... But I didn't think the credits were that impressive for this one, so...
Yep, they've been ousted. We finally broke the streak of interesting or terrible credits. It's just not even worth mentioning.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, so it's a little nudity never hurts when your movie is a little slow paced. So okay, so I think this one is pretty obvious. We talked about this earlier, and we both agreed the puppets in this movie were well done. They looked and moved like actual puppets because they were actual puppets. If this movie was done today, you know that we'd get some crappy CGI puppets, but this was a nice combination of puppeteering and stop motion animation, and they actually, the look of them was great. Like, they looked like what they were supposed to look like, and they moved the way you would think that a puppet would move, like the way they're jointed and everything. So,
yeah, and you could pretty much guess the name of the puppets.
Yeah.
Right off the bat, like when I saw the doll with like the tiny head and the big fist, I just thought, man, if his name's not Pinhead. And then guess what? It was.
Yeah, and Blade. I mean, that was pretty. That was pretty obvious, but yeah, it just like definitely, I would recommend this movie alone just for that, just for those puppets. Okay, what else you got?
I like the doll design. That was my other good point.
Okay. Well, you might have been a little more harsh on this one than I was, but one of the things I had to make note, and I'm sorry, this may seem like such a minor thing, but really to me, it's not. It had a runtime of exactly 90 minutes. Perfect. Never make your horror movie too long. 90 minutes is perfect. And, wow, we're going to blaze through this one really fast.
Yeah.
Oh, we got more to talk about, but yeah, like it's, I thought you might have a little more on your list, so.
I thought the actresses were cute.
They were bad. They were, I mean, relatively unknown. I think the only one that I even heard of before was Barbara Crampton, and she had like the least amount of screen time. She played a very minor character in this.
Yeah, there was Irene Miracle. She played the southern psychic.
Right.
Yeah, and she was only in about 13 movies, like Inferno, In the Shadow of Kilimanjaro, Nick Night, not Nick at Night, Watchers 2, Walking Thunder, and 1 + 2 = 4. And we don't even get a Wikipedia entry for that, so I have no idea how that math checks out. Ooh, but she was in a movie, I don't know if she was naked in it, but it was called La Portiera Nuda, or The Naked Door Woman.
Oh, yeah.
Well, we know that we know some woman was naked in that movie, but we don't know if it was her.
That would be a big disappointment to name your movie that and then not have any nudity in it.
Oh, her name is on the poster. So it's some Italian movie. So you could
Oh,
be.
well, then there's definitely nudity in it.
Yeah, you're damn. Yeah, it's a 1976 Italian commedia sexy all'italiana. So that's a genre, commedia sexy all'italiana, directed by Luigi Cozzi, starring Irene Miracle and Erica Blank. So we need to have like a naked foreign comedy podcast, just so we can see if we can check out some naked Irene. Because all I need is a miracle. All I need is you.
Well, speaking of that, your little reference there, the next thing I had on my list for the good was the music score. It was very circus-like, but sort of had a bit, it was sort of a bit distorted, so it sounds very ominous when it plays in the background. It sets a nice, tense feeling if you happen to notice it. Unfortunately, it's probably the only thing that does in this movie. Because this movie was not scary. Tell me a scary scene from this movie.
Yeah.
There you go.
Oh, you know who I found out that Erica Blank? Mm-hmm. She was the one who played the erotic character Emmanuelle. If you ever saw those softcore movies,
I have not.
It's a series of French softcore erotic movies. I remember seeing them on the French channel here in Ottawa at midnight. It was like a section that they called Bleu Nuit.
Yeah, well, that's completely horror related. So let's move along.
Actually, she was in several horror movies. The Third Eye, Kill Baby Kill, So Sweet So Perverse, The Night Evelyn Came Out of the Grave, The Devil's Nightmare, The Red-Headed Corpse, and Mark of the Devil Part 2. So she's... And I guarantee you she had to be topless in a few of those movies, because that seems to be her theme.
Yeah, definitely.
So, being naked in movies. And some of them have body counts.
Okay, so that was it for your list for the good, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that was mine too. I just had the three things: the puppets, the runtime, and the music score. Okay, so let's get to it. Let's talk about the bad. And since you always start off the good, I'll start off the bad.
Sure.
The acting in this movie is nothing short of awful. The actors were chosen, obviously, not because they were good, but because they were the best the studio could get for what they were willing to pay. All the scenes where the group of psychics get attacked and try to escape is honestly hilarious, and not intentionally hilarious. It is like they were trying to act their asses off, but they just couldn't do it. Like, there is an art, I would never be able to do it, but there is an art to reacting to something that you don't actually see. You know, when you were seeing it from the POV view of the puppets?
Yeah.
When they were coming after it, and the people were like, basically the actors are just trying to act scared and get away from the camera. Like, they really just floundered about, and I thought it was hilarious. So these definitely weren't top tier actors that they had.
It reminded me of better movies like Evil Dead.
Yeah, see, there's some like being attacked by the camera scenes that are done so well, and this just did not do it. Okay, so I can't wait to hear from you, Mike. Tell me something bad about this movie.
Okay, well, we get to see the lady running the hotel, not the one who owns the hotel, but the one who, like, carries out the day-to-day operations. And, when I was looking away from the TV, I thought that there was a child in the movie. And then I see the old lady talking, and I'm like, another short old lady with a childish voice? Ripping off better movies is not good form.
Yeah. That's for sure. Even if it is one that I'm not a huge fan of.
Yeah, at least you can appreciate that other people are.
Oh, absolutely. Like, I mean, this, when I say I don't, and of course we're talking about Poltergeist, and when I say I'm not a huge fan of Poltergeist, it doesn't mean that I necessarily think that it's a bad movie. Like, don't get me wrong, I did totally enjoy it. I just didn't think it's as great as people make it out to be. But I do understand people liking it, so that's fine. But yeah, this I think that was definitely, like, that character was definitely a little nod to Poltergeist. Okay, so what I've got next is something that definitely falls into the bad category. While the puppets were really well done, just like I said earlier, they were definitely the highlight of the movie. They actually got very little screen time. You see them for a little bit at the beginning, and then, from what I recall, the movie is about half over before you even see them again. And what makes this even more of an offense is how many scenes there were of people just sitting around or standing around having conversations that do nothing to move the story along. It was absolutely pointless. They easily could have cut those scenes down for more puppet scenes. I would much rather have the puppets do nothing than watch the actors do nothing.
Like, yeah, at least the puppets have a reason for looking wooden.
Yeah. Like, I would watch a dozen scenes where the puppets are just, like, walking around and doing, like, weird shit than have live actors sit around and talk about weird shit. So, shame on them. Alright, so what else you got? And I know you must have more for the bad category.
Oh. Well, the psychic girl, she gets her leg broken or something by Pinhead, so she can't run away from him. And several times, like, she throws him away. And then she's crawling through the hallway. And I'm thinking, like, this hotel isn't closed. Like, there are people in these rooms. The one time a woman should scream for help, and she doesn't. I mean, if her leg wasn't broken, she could have kicked Pinhead's ass by herself. Like, she keeps throwing him away, and why is it so hard to kill these puppets? Like, as soon as you pick one up, you should, like, twist it, mangle it, break it, rip off its head, or, like, smash it into pieces. No, they always throw it away. It gets back up, and then they throw it away and it gets back up. Like, these people have a time, an opportunity to learn from their mistakes. And they don't.
Yep. Yeah, that's the thing, too. As cool as these puppets were, they didn't seem like, I know that it's a movie. I know people are reacting to, like, what they have to do. They're reacting to what's around them. Like, their imagination is involved. But just the way it came off, like, the puppets itself didn't seem like much of a threat. It's something that you could have easily gotten away from, or like you said, like, they picked them up in several scenes and threw them. You couldn't just, if you picked them up, like, start grab them by the head and tear their head off, tear their limbs off, anything, So, yeah, which that actually kind of leads into what I had next for the bad list, because, and we already mentioned it, this movie is not the least bit scary. The plot actually seems like something that was tacked on to have an excuse to have people go to some location to be killed by puppets, which, honestly, I would be fine with if they made the kills scary, or at least gory. Give me one or the other. But, yeah, it's not scary. The puppets are not threatening. The kills are not... is nothing great. So, yeah. Alright, so what do you got next?
Considering the sex scene that we had with that lady, like, we saw her topless in the tub, and yet she's got a negligee on when she's banging her boyfriend or whatever, like, just be naked, just be topless. Like, give us something to look at, because you got nothing else going on.
Like,
Your character's not likable. You don't have a character to speak of. Like, at least just show the boobs.
you can have a sex scene or you can have nudity, Mike. You can't have both, okay?
Like, everything else was here just wasn't remarkable enough to be in the bad category. Like, it was just bad acting, terrible pacing. It's like they had good-looking puppets, they just didn't do anything with them that didn't make you go, just fucking wrap it up already.
Right, exactly.
Like, these kills took too fucking long.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Like, it's, like I said, it all boils down to it just not being scary. And speaking of not being scary, the next thing I got for the bad, and actually this is last, so I'm going to be kind of done beating on this movie after this one. The main location for the movie, the hotel, it's really bland. Did you notice that? It's kind of like most other things in this movie. It wasn't a very mood-inducing atmosphere, which I think would have helped this movie. I know it's very cliche, but the old dark house approach would have been a big help to this one. I don't want to say not a big help, but it would have helped it at least. I mean, at least we would have had a more interesting backdrop for the film. But this hotel was just like an ordinary looking hotel with plain white walls throughout, white hallways. You know, like it looked like they just showed up at whatever hotel they could find and rented a few rooms and they shot the thing there. So, yeah, it was just not interesting at all. And
yep, the bare minimum.
Absolutely. Like, just didn't do it for me. Like, once again, the only thing like visually appealing about this movie was the puppets.
And the soapy boobs.
And Mike's soapy boobs.
Not my boobs. The boobs for
There's
me.
an image for everybody. Okay, so yeah, like I said, that's it. That's all I have for the bad. Did you have anything else to add?
If I really took the bad category seriously, this could be like a 2-hour podcast. So I'll just say that I'm not a big fan of this movie. Like, There's just so many bad things. We pretty much glanced on them, but like the rest of the movie, any more elaboration would just be going on like on a synopsis of like why every scene of this was tepid, at best. So I'm ready to move on to the decent category,
which I think is your favorite category. So we call this category the WTF because this is where we talk about things that don't really fit. I guess a lot of them may be able to fit in the bad category, and actually sometimes even the good category, but it's really things that are just things that made us say, what the fuck? Something that confused us. There was no resolution to it. It had no explanation to what's happening. And, well, this movie didn't have a lot. It did have a couple of things that just left me scratching my head. The first one that I'm going to bring up, and this is a very general one, but after I'm thinking about it, after watching this movie for a second time, is one thing I'm confused about is actually the purpose of the story. I'm still not sure what the point of everything was. Why all this stuff was happening. You know, like, it's kind of like, okay, this guy brought puppets to life, and then he killed himself, and now there's some psychics in the hotel, and the puppets kill them, and I'm like, why is all this happening? Like, we're not really getting that much of an explanation about why all this stuff is going on.
Yeah, the guy. Okay, I think we should do like a basic spoiler synopsis. The movie begins. A bunch of psychics come to a hotel to meet a friend, and just shows how good they are at being psychic. 'Cause big surprise, he's dead.
Yeah.
And this is a surprise to them, showing how shitty they are at actually being psychic.
Yeah.
And One lady, she has like psychometry, which is the ability to see the past of any item by touching it. So she gets in the elevator and she has this waking nightmare of the guy Neil Gallagher, who is the dead man, and it shows him raping some girl in the elevator, making this hilarious, cartoonishly evil face while he's doing it. You know, he's just fully appreciating, like, I am in fact raping somebody. I am a rapist. Like, he just has that as this woman is screaming, and like it's cartoonishly evil. And like, they're all confused as to why he killed himself, because, you know, the guy's like a narcissist, like he's too in love with himself to actually do himself in. Then it turns out, and Alex, who looks like present day Val Kilmer, is just having this constant nightmare of the dead friend dancing with this girl and holding a gun to her head while she just stands there letting him do it. And again, I don't know why he feels like this is a nightmare. Like, this girl clearly isn't fighting the gun to her head. Like, she's either in on it or whatever. But then we find out, big spoiler alert at the end, after several of the psychics have been killed except for Fat Val Kilmer, we find out that Neil did in fact kill himself, but it was so that he could get his one death out of the way.
Isn't Val Kilmer Fat Val Kilmer now?
Yeah. But again, this was made in 1989, so we don't want to confuse people thinking like this was like Top Gun hunky Val Kilmer.
All right, sure.
So, yeah, apparently, like, I guess, like, the metaphysically speaking, it is the duty of every man to die once. So he gets his one death out of the way, and using Toulon's puppetry magic. Yeah, like, oh, fuck. Man, we gotta go back. Okay, the puppet master Andre Toulon was played by the guy who played the uncle in Christmas Vacation. The guy who burned down the Christmas tree. Fun,
right,
like,
yeah. That's
great,
him.
Great guy. And he brings the puppets to life by wrapping his arms around them lovingly and like saying, "Life, life, live." And then the puppet moves. And then some Nazis come along. He brings some... He uses the puppets as a lookout. And this is where we get to see the first Evil Dead thing, where this puppet is just running around the hotel and shocks the hell out of one woman, who you think if this guy's been in the hotel long enough that these people should be used to the puppets. Especially at this point, like, the puppets are supposedly good because they're imbued with the soul of their creator. And when the Nazis come along, he kills himself after hiding the puppets in the wall. And he rolls up like this scroll with hieroglyphs on it. So we can tell, like, oh, he's read some ancient Egyptian scroll thing. And the two what the fucks are all tied into this intro. Like, I'm rambling. I'm like, this movie has destroyed my sense of my being. The first we see the point of view of the camera running around. It's like from the view of one of the puppets, because we can tell because it's so low to the ground. But you hear this it's a constant annoying like, why is a puppet out of breath?
Yep, exactly.
First, what the fuck? Second, what the fuck? He knows that Nazis are coming, assuming that, you know, they want his dark magic. They want his magic to create... I guess they want to mail a puppet to Winston Churchill and Franklin Roosevelt and, you know, just let them take out the leadership of the enemy. Or they want to create like a swarm of these things and just airdrop them over London and create mass puppet mayhem. Like, the Nazis have plans. Like, yeah, we can only assume the Nazis have plans. I mean, maybe they're after Toulon because they heard he's a Jew and they don't know anything about his magic. But anyway, they're coming for him. And he decides, I'm going to hide the puppets in the wall for 50 years. and then he puts a gun in his mouth, pulls the trigger, and blows his brains out. Which I'm like, you possess immortal dolls. Why not just use them to kill the fucking Nazis?
Exactly. There was two Nazis.
And they weren't really prepared for war. And, anytime you can kill a Nazi, you should. Dead Nazis are better than a dead puppeteer. This guy could have taken on the entire Reich himself. He could just be like, oh, here is a happy little puppet for Mr. Goebbels. And then he'd be like, oh, das ist eine good puppet. Then he goes to take a shower later, and then the puppet slits his throat, and boom, no more propaganda. But no, this guy's a friggin' idiot. I'm going to take a good, well-meaning, kindly puppeteer out of this world than Nazis. So, yeah, and then 50 years later, the story unfolds. This guy kills himself because he's placed this spell in advance to revive himself. And so we can assume that when his body's moved around one point after another, that he's doing this all himself, and that the puppets aren't moving him. Because he just his corpse gets found several places throughout this movie, and everyone's just like, who keeps moving this dead guy? And then they get killed by puppets. And then he tells them, like, now that he's perfected the art of animation, he doesn't need the puppets anymore. Which, instead of, like, just turning the spell off, which would be the sensible thing, he just decides to, like, tell the puppets to fuck off, throws them around, he starts, like, beating them up. And then he goes to kill this girl, and then the puppets all of a sudden look all shocked, like, oh, he's gonna kill his wife who loved him in life. Oh no, like, now they suddenly care about people. So then they turn on him in this really weird fashion. Again, like, it takes about, like, 10 minutes to kill him. And, like, they cut him open, and, like, he's bleeding green, because apparently, like, he's a puppet. So now his blood is green. I'm like, oh, fuck this movie.
Well, there you go. You've just laid out, like, pretty much the entire movie.
Yeah. Yeah, so fuck this movie.
Yeah. So that's it. Well, you certainly had more keys of what the fuck than I did. I pretty much just said the story didn't make sense. And yeah, the breathing puppet. I'm like, so when they bring the puppets to life, are they actually living like they have to breathe and eat and take dumps or whatever? Like, because that one was breathing heavily after running around a little bit.
Yeah, and like Pinhead gets his head ripped off in the elevator, and he puts his head back on. So dismembering them doesn't really seem to do anything.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot about that because I said, like, hey, maybe you should just, like, rip them apart or whatever. Maybe that would kill them. But no, yeah, I forgot that he got his head ripped off, so that didn't do it. So I'm not sure what else would. But could you try burning them or something? I don't know.
Or, ripping them in, like, pieces. Like, at least it would take a while for them to reassemble.
Yeah. Yeah, so, but now, that being said, while we're certainly not big fans of this movie, online I did see that this movie does have, like, quite a big cult following. There's a lot of people that enjoy it. I'm just realizing now, too, that Axel and Pandora that suggested, our listeners that suggested this movie, they probably love this movie and we just crapped all over it, so sorry guys, but you wouldn't respect us if we weren't honest about how we felt, so there it is. But yeah, so definitely if there's a highlight to this movie, it's the puppets. I'm actually quite happy with that. I could actually recommend it if someone's a fan of that type of art, like puppeteering, stop motion animation. It's worthwhile for that. I don't know if watching the entire movie is going to be worthwhile because, man, it gets pretty damn slow.
If you saw Child's Play and thought, I'd like to see a movie like this but worse, then Puppet Master is for you.
I like Child's Play, but it was a little too action-packed for me.
Yeah, I wanted to see Charles play, but if they really slowed it down, so I could, I could keep up with it and not be rushed.
Exactly. So that is it. Definitely watch it for the puppets because really well done. I believe it was David Allen, who's a pioneer in puppetry and stop motion animation. He did the work for this. Am I completely wrong on that, or was it David Allen?
Well, he wasn't the first person to bring puppets into this movie. No.
Oh,
no. See, I did a little bit of research and found that there was a conversation that talked about the first person that Gabe. What was his name? Gabe?
Gabe? Who are you talking about?
Who's the director of this, the producer?
Charles Band was the producer of this.
Man, I really fucked up his name. Well, good. Well, I'm only fucking it up now. Like, I just seen this movie, and it's like, as you can tell, I'm not my usual succinct self. This movie's just completely discombobulated me.
So you said that David Allen wasn't the first person to design the puppets for this?
No, he was the second choice. The first person was actually the nephew of the director because they really wanted to save budget.
Oh, okay.
And David was, he's a quality guy, but they wanted to save a few shekels, so they went with the nephew, who just you'd think that he would have some puppet making experience, right?
Well, you would think if you're going to hire somebody to do something like that.
But then again, if you're going to go cheap as possible, you'd want the least amount of experience because otherwise people would actually make you, pay for what you're going to get.
Mm-hmm.
I managed to find one little snippet of a conversation that led to this idea being shut down real quick. And I will present it to you now on this week's It Came from the Cutting Room Floor. Hi, Uncle Charles.
Hey, Jerry! I was waiting for you! Come in! Got those puppet prototypes ready for me?
Yep, sure do. Right here in this bag.
Okay, well, I can't wait to see what you've done. The studio has a lot riding on this movie, and the puppets make or break it. But I'm sure my bright nephew has some great ideas for scary killer puppets.
Okay, well, I'm sure I'll show you what I got. But remember, these are just rough copies. They need some polishing.
Of course, of course. So, let's see them.
Okay, well, here's the first one. Say hello to Burninator.
What the hell is that?
It's the Burninator. Ooh, scary. Watch out, he'll get you with his flamethrower. Whoosh.
This is a paper bag with a face and arms drawn onto it and a big lighter taped to its side. This is garbage. It looks like garbage, and I'm pretty sure the paper bag was actually fished out of the trash. Not to mention, how dumb is it to have a puppet made of paper shoot fire? Look, it's on fire right now.
Ah, damn it. Okay, maybe that one was a little bad.
A little?
But this one's really scary. He kills his victims by crushing them with his vice-like jaws.
Ah, now you're talking. Okay, let's see it.
Okay, here is Pinchy.
That's vice grips with some doll arms attached.
Yeah, but look at how he crushes.
Jerry, I paid you in advance. You said you could get me some puppets for the movie, and so far, you've given me crap! What the hell?
Okay, maybe those weren't so great.
Trash!
Whatever, but I got one more that's truly grotesque. It's got like a thick skin covered in protruding thorn thingies and weird spiky green hair. Ugh, horrifying. I give you Spike.
That's apple! You didn't even do anything to it! You could have at least drawn a face on it or something!
Yeah,
No,
but...
listen to me, my sister's kid. I gave you a lot of money from the budget of this movie to get me some puppets. Instead, you bring me garbage that I'm pretty sure you just grabbed on the way over here and put together in the parking lot. Now, what happened to that money?
Oh, yeah. I went on a bit of a bender. A bit of a week-long bender, actually. Woke up this morning with no idea where I was. I had to take the bus home. Just had time to take a shower and come over here.
Get out. Get out of my office. Out. Go. No.
But I have one more. But he's a good one. His name is Blade and he's a knife expert.
Oh, and is it an actual knife with googly eyes stuck to it?
Well, I'm gonna go. See your mom's birthday party next week.
Idiot. God damn it. I wonder if it's too late to hire David Allen to make some puppets. We're going to be over budget. Wow, yeah. Well, I'm really glad that they did hire David Allen afterwards to make the puppets because,
Just think this movie could have looked worse.
yeah, Jerry really had some pretty crappy ideas.
Yeah, I'm glad they went with David and that David Allen and that guy, that breathing puppet, which really looked like Judge Doom from Roger Rabbit, but with like a knife hand.
Yeah, really, that's a good catch. Oh,
And why does the doll have bullets in his eyes?
he had bullets in his eyes?
Yeah. You know, the Blade puppet, every time he
Yeah.
looked at something, you'd see like 2 points come out of his eyes.
Oh, okay, yeah. I just thought it was really intense pupils. So now that we talked about the puppets and, we actually got some good puppets from this movie, what was your favorite one?
I kind of like Pinhead. I guess, like, because I don't know if they use, like, just... Well, I guess I just like Pinhead because no matter how many times he kept getting thrown around, he just kept coming back for more. He was a resilient little guy. And, like, you think, like, oh, he's a big, strong dude. But, he's punching people in the face repeatedly, and yet they still have enough wherewithal to toss him around.
Right.
But, I can't give it up for Blade because, like, the way he's just like, no, he does not have lungs. He should not be out of breath. Fuck him.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter that he's like the most lethal and dangerous puppet. And I can't give it up for that puppet with the spinning face.
Jester? Was that the one?
Yeah. Because like if his face his face is like 3 sections that spin around to show different faces. But this doesn't make sense because those other faces would be like on his side or behind him. But no, every time you see his face, it's only like one face on one side. And yet the pieces spin around and then show a different face. Like, it doesn't make any fucking sense.
Yeah. I'm going to say I'm not a fan of Pinhead because of the name. I don't like the fact that they took a name from a character from a movie that came out 2 years before this one that I actually am a big fan of, and that's Hellraiser. And the lead Cenobite in that was named Pinhead.
Oh, I thought you were going to talk about Dick Tracy.
No, I will never talk about Dick Tracy. Yeah, so I didn't like. Honestly, my favorite because I thought it was the most grotesque and gruesome one was it Leech Woman or Madam Leech or something like that?
Yeah, Leech Woman because these names have no originality.
Yeah. So and it made me wonder too because she's just disgusting. She barfs up leeches that suck people's blood. It is just so disgusting. And it makes me think too, so are the leeches that she regurgitates, are they puppets as well? Or are they actually, does she actually have like real leeches living inside her?
I would imagine that they're real leeches. Oh yeah, because that's how they kill the big puppet master, the puppet master in question at the end, Blade hooks his jaw open, and Leech Woman barfs up a leech into his throat, which apparently chokes him. And it doesn't make any sense because now he is a puppet. He should not have to breathe. And he even said, like, he even tells Alex, who is like Fat Val Kilmer, he tells him, like, now that I've, like, surpassed death, it would take the complete destruction of my body to stop me. But they don't completely destroy his body. They cut off a few fingers, they shove a leech down his throat, and he dies. So they establish, like, I am now immortal.
Unless I choke to death.
Yeah. So, fuck this.
Yeah, it's, true story, yeah, that seems far from being completely destroyed. I figured when they said that he could only die by his body being completely destroyed, so I'm like, okay, well, they're just gonna burn him to death.
Yeah, or, like, throw him in a pile of acid or something.
Something like that, but yeah. I didn't know. So he could have been, his mortality could have been continued with the Heimlich maneuver, basically. Okay, so yeah, so Mike, that's all the details that we have to talk about in regards to this movie, except for one thing, and I'm very curious about what you're going to have for us, because I literally have no idea what I would pick.
Yeah, the pickings are slim once again on this week's Kill of the Week. So the first person that dies is the puppet master, who kills himself with a gun in his mouth. Not too shabby, but I'm pretty sure suicides, unless they're spectacular, they're not going to rate a Kill of the Week. And the Zelda Rubinstein ripoff lady, she gets warned, stay away from the fireplace. She doesn't stay away from the fireplace, and then Pinhead cracks her skull open with a poker. It's not really shown that well. All you see is, like, the poker coming down and a bit of blood go onto a log. It's pretty darn pathetic.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to say my Kill of the Week goes to the psychometric girl who has, like, a neat psychic power, but nothing that saves her from a doll who has a drill on his head. He's hiding under the bed. He makes a noise. She stops fucking her boyfriend, doctor, assistant, whatever. She looks under the bed, and this doll with a drill on his head takes a running charge in her mouth. And we don't see it, except when we see her dead body on display later on. We can finally get to see where the doll drilled her.
Mm-hmm. And
I thought that was just hilarious, because the boyfriend he's tied up and blindfolded. He doesn't know what's going on. He doesn't know that she's dead. He's calling out to her, and then Leech Woman starts, like, kissing him on the chest. And I'm thinking, you think he would notice that her hands are now extremely tiny and cold and wood, and that her mouth is now the size of a penny. But, these things do not register with him. And so she starts barfing up leeches on him, and about, like, 4 or 5 leeches on him, and he's, like, crying and screaming. And apparently he's dead. Like, that killed him.
Mm-hmm.
And that does not register as a kill, because 6 leeches are not going to kill you. But the lady getting a drill in her mouth, that's pretty gross and grotesque. So I'm gonna give that my kill. Hopefully I'll be back to my articulate self after, but this movie just took it out of me.
Okay, yeah, I think that would be the one I would have to go with. It was a tough one, but yeah, good job.
I couldn't give it up to that lady getting killed in the elevator by... She gets, like, her ankle broken, doesn't scream. Like, and she's in a hotel surrounded by people. Anytime she could scream and be like, help, my leg's broken, somebody help me. You know, the dolls couldn't take on like 2 people. Yeah. But, you know, yeah, like that gets disqualified by reason of stupidity.
Okay. Well, guys, that is Puppet Master, Axel, Pandora. Thank you very much for the suggestion, and we're sorry. Don't be mad. But we want to hear from you. Do you agree with what we had to say about this movie? Do you agree, disagree, have questions for us, comments, whatever? Do you have any recommendations for movies you want us to see? And since this movie has a bazillion sequels, do you have recommendation of which of the sequels we should watch?
Yeah, well, does this franchise redeem itself?
Yes, let us know. And you got a few ways of doing that. You can email us at graveyardshiftpod@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter, just like Axel and Pandora did. And you can do that by going to @GYS_horrorpod. Or you can follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/thegraveyardshiftpod. We do have a Patreon page. If you would feel like you'd like to support us monetarily, you can make a donation there. We're at www.patreon.com/graveyard. All proceeds go to the upkeep and promotion of the show. And if you're a Patreon donor, you get access to some pretty cool Patreon exclusive content. We do some extra shows that are just for our Patreon supporters, so go check that out. And of course, if a monetary donation is not possible, that is completely okay with us. You can still help us out a ton by going on to iTunes. Rate, review, subscribe. In the long run, that's actually going to do the most to help us out. And if you're not an Apple user, that's okay. You can still support us by giving us a review on Facebook or just doing like you're doing. If you follow us, whether you listen to us directly from our Podbean page or Stitcher, Google Play, whatever the case is, you're listening to the show somehow, keep doing what you're doing. And if you feel generous, share us on your social media or tell people by word of mouth. If you know someone you think would be interested in the show, let them know. And Mike, if people wanted to hear more from you, how would they go about doing that?
Well, you can hear me and my 2 American friends talk about Nintendo Power Magazine. Yes, the seminal gaming magazine. We read each issue front to back, first to last. And we've just wrapped up the 1995 year, so we'll be taking a small break, but it'll give you time to catch up in the archive if you're a new listener. And also we have, in that feed, a show called The Taste Test, which is the first show I did with skits. It's where I got my amazing skit editing, writing, where I got my... what's that where you start things? Where I cut my teeth on them. Yeah, it's late.
It's late and we're tired. Yeah, check it out. If you're a fan of Nintendo Power Magazine, if you had a subscription like I did back in the day, or you're just a fan of old Nintendo games, check it out. The guys are hilarious. It's definitely worthwhile. I really do enjoy it. I catch every episode. I've even guested on there a few times, which was awesome. And you're going to like it. And actually, you can actually check out, if you go to our Twitter or Facebook page, we actually share the episodes there as well because, since Mike is a part of it, we want to make sure to promote that. So you can check out the episodes there if you follow us on any of our social media. So guys, thank you again for listening to us. We've got another movie coming for you next week. And I don't remember which one's next, but that's okay. You'll find it next week. So,
oh, good. So I'm not the only one that's not
We've
on all
got
cylinders.
a long list of movies. My God, you guys have suggested so many. We could do this podcast for years, I think, and not run out of movies. But that's okay. Keep suggesting it. We want to do that. We don't ever want to run out of movies. So keep suggesting.
No. I want to do this until, like, the last episode of The Graveyard would be when I'm in the graveyard.
I want to do this until I hate Mike or hate myself. So we'll see what happens first. But anyway, guys, thank you so much. And until next time, I'm Sheldon.
And I'm Mike.
Please come join us again on the Graveyard Shift.